You're on foot. How much can you carry away compared to drive away?
We've got some. We've got
3 years.
Yeah, we've got some pictures, by the way.
They're not hearing that.
They're showing also where they're doing the road grids now. We've got pictures of where they've done, where they've actually excavated. You know, they've dug fine trails. They've put the wire grids in the roads, and even the police are boasting about this in Florida and a few other places that the system will be completely online, so that you only hit a button and they can shut a car down that's in front of them if they want to.
My friend.
As is, where is.
Go ahead. My friend just got a job with a company that's doing research with the ECMs, which is the electronics for your car.
Great.
They're putting the transponders in the ECMs. So I said, can you get me the frequency and the wattage? And hopefully I'll have that.
What's good for the goose is good for the goosey, guys.
That's right.
If it's in our cars, it's got to be in their cars.
And we could shut them down with a gun.
It works both ways.
And they're still auctioning off to do some.
No, I got to talk about that.
They're auctioning two things here. Number one is the DoD auctions are one way to go. The cheaper way or the easier way to access is through GSA, Government Service Administration, centered out of Chicago. A lot of the fleet trucks you've seen that we picked up, like the M725s, 715, the Jeep trucks, the ones that were the 1 1/4 ton Vietnam era, they're the cheapest thing on the market. We bought those for an average of $150 a piece.
And they run pretty good.
Yeah, they're not a bad vehicle. Now the best buy we got was a Dodge ambulance. It's 6,500 some pounds, so it's.
Well, I was thinking of like a 5-ton because I can still use that in my business.
Right.
You know what I mean?
What a lot of the guys did. Okay, for instance, you can pick up a 4-axle or a 3-axle 10-ton trailer for about $300 to $500. Then you make that up to a 2.5 for a 5-ton frame, and what you've got is unlimited carrying capacity for all practical purposes. And again, remember my policy on this: we should all have trucks now. Yeah, there's a truck down the road here. I want you to take a look at it. The 67 to 69 Chevys were the most heavily civil defense engineered vehicle ever produced. They were also the most heavily researched truck that Chevy or any company ever came up with. They're the only truck ever to have been produced to civil defense specifications, including protection from EMP through the use of circuit breakers, etc. in the system. And again, there are only 2 to 3 years of production there. You got 67, 68, 69. And you got to take a look at the models, and you need to take a look at the serial numbers too, the VIN numbers. These vehicles, though, they're laying around. They're built like a brick shit house, as everybody knows. Amazingly enough, it's 20-some years later, and they're still in the service. They're still out there with people driving them. More so than many newer fleet trucks that have been around only a short period of time. So the Chevys are a good option. Dodge of all types are desirable. I don't care what they say about this garbage with the Chevy fleet truck. Those fleet trucks, ones that supposedly have the self-destruct gas tanks, ignore that garbage. Yeah, that's propaganda probably to get those vehicles off the road because their objective is to get rid of all of the old vehicles as quickly as they can. This affects 5 million vehicles on the road.
And the later models of those are easily adaptable to point systems.
Yeah, Water Buffaloes are running about, we picked the ones up that we got for $225 a piece.
Also,
that's with brand new tires on them too, by the way.
This to you, when you're talking about first aid kits and things to have in the field, these are little bottles of clove oil.
Yes. Yes.
And if you take one in the teeth, there's nothing. If you get a toothache or your filling comes out or you get hit in the teeth, you're worthless. You're a maggot. You're nothing.
That's right.
And this will numb you. When your dentist, the old stuff they used to do to numb your teeth, it was all based on the root of cloves. This is very high concentrated. You need very little. Toothpick. Don't touch it on your tongue. It tastes like shit. It'll burn and your breath will stink. But it will numb you. I used this when I was in the field. You just dab it and put it right where the toothache is, and it will keep you going. I mean, it doesn't take much.
Exactly.
But and that's one of the things when I was watching you preparing for the
equipping
order tape, and I said, this is one thing most people don't mention, that and the shit paper you mentioned.
Can you get that gun show?
No, you get this at any drugstore.
Drugstore.
It's usually they usually have wintergreen, blackberry. They make that hard candy stuff out of cinnamons. And
and.
But you want clove.
Yes. Ann might have it.
Ann carries it also.
Yes, we have it. Yeah.
I'll be there.
Now, on the list of things, if you're going to go with the DoD auctions, there's a couple things to remember right now that are important. Jeep trailers will made up to all of the Dodge package trucks, the newer ones, all of the Cut V's, which are the Chevy trucks, the regular 151 Ford Mutt, and probably the later model M715 and 725s. In fact, they should link up without any problem. The umbilical for all the lights and everything, you just plug in and go. When you see what's at these sites, remember you may get the trailer before you ever get the truck. And there's nothing better designed or engineered than those Jeep trailers. One man can move the whole cargo without assistance. They are so well balanced and they're so well engineered. They're like a big baby wheel, big wheelbarrow, basically. There are a lot of advantages to the Jeep package with the Jeep trailer because it's, again, small unit. Pull it in, drop the trailer, keep right on going. Pick up an empty trailer, keep right on going down the road. We do not want to go, if we can, although we'll have some deuces, we're going to put some 5-tonners. I'll go right back to what happened with Iraq. Learn from the wars that we've just seen, which are modern. The big vehicles became big targets. We need to termite their ass to death. We need rat packs. In other words, what does one rat care if, or what does a pack of rats care if one rat die? They don't. They keep right on going. In this case, if we lose a vehicle, you disgorge everything that's on it, spread it between the other vehicles, and keep right on going. Jeeps are ideal for that. Small pickup trucks still, although I prefer something in a full-size truck because that's what they're trying to phase out. Big pickup trucks are
The old PWs, the Dodge Power Wagons.
That's right, Dodge Power Wagons, anything you can get. Well, right now the M880s at the auctions are running anywhere from as little as, we bought them for as little as $150 a piece, to as high as $700, $800 or $1,000, but you're talking four-wheel drive with good rubber, no pollution gear on the motor. In many cases, a spare 24-volt generator pack with batteries on board already, set up to go, so all you do is go boom. Remember, with the Dodges and with the Chevy trucks, one key fits all. And I always carry one for that reason. You never know where you're going to be when you might need a truck.
That's right.
Okay?
And you got a key, not a crow.
And you got a key. Yes, we can. We've made hundreds already. And we'll make more. We will. We'll do that by the next
That'll
meeting.
fit
We'll have more.
any Chevy or any...
Any Dodge. The Chevy's another key. You have
It's
to have
a
two
master
keys.
key.
The other key's in the pocket. This is the Dodge key, because Dodge is most likely to find not taken care of. They won't secure them as much as an older fleet vehicle. And they're all over. In fact, most Boy Scout camps have 4 or 5 of them sitting around right now.
You think they're going to try to confiscate vehicles?
They will. Well, they'll have no choice because if, well, let's put it this way. Remember, mathematically, we're only 5% of the global population. In their eyes, we are the last great battle for victory. We also know that if we hold our ground, if we can do nothing more than just stay alive and survive with whatever casualties, we're a thorn in their butt they can't get rid of, and they will not be successful because this is the linchpin. They're going to have to go after the weapons quickly. They've got to go after the vehicles because transportation, that interstate highway works both ways. If we can access it and control regions or areas, as they want to call regions, we try not to use the term states, or areas, we want to make sure that those infrastructures are used by us as quickly as we can, but we've got to have large numbers of small vehicles. The other advantage there is fuel consumption, spare parts, etc. If you have something break down, you can throw it off into a parts pool, cannibalize it, and keep other vehicles going. I still think, I'll tell you what, it would have mean strategy if they had been thinking in Iraq. I'd have used 4-wheel drive all-terrain vehicles, the little all-terrain single-seaters. Put a spider basket on the back, that'd carry about a 1/4 ton of material, and buy a snot load of them because they're not a tactical piece of equipment that's accounted for as war materials. If you had 10,000 of them or 20,000 of them as a constant flow, they run on a thimble full of gas. You can carry all the ordnance and equipment the soldier needs to stay in the field and keep him fed, keep him watered. They could have had a constant stream of munitions, of food, and water. And if it got blown off the road, you push it off to the side and keep right on going. Whatever else is there could go right around it. There wouldn't have been these horrendous traffic jams, this highway of death garbage. That would have been a crock. Wherever you had to travel, you would have traveled. And if you do not have a significant target area, remember all the weapons that they're counting on are mass destruction weapons that are based on the idea that you're going to assume mass in advance of an attack. If you're dealing with a rat pack operation like this, there is no conceivable way they can predict specific strength until it's too late, and then you're so close that their support weapons are not effective, at least not their gross destruction, their mass destruction weapons. They have to count then on toe-to-toe, eye-to-eye. And that engagement has to be chosen under our conditions, at our choice, at our discretion, when we want to fight, not when they want to fight.
And for how long we
Mark,
want to
That's right.
Dune buggies make good tactical
Dune
weapons,
buggies are,
too.
that's right, thank you. That's a good choice. And not only that, remember, you don't have to have Volkswagen engines. These guys have started to learn from the fact that Volkswagens are dying out. There's not that many left in the big fleet across the country. So if what are out there are going to be needed for spares for the existing vehicles, a lot of guys are going to regular 4-cylinder and 6-cylinder engines mounted into the ass end of these things, and it's a very successful package using Pinto engines or even alloy engines out of these newer small Chevette-sized vehicles. So there's a lot of options.
two things about your highway. At Rochester Road and M59, you have a set of lights on the eastbound, also on the westbound. Also at I-75, you have a set of lights on northbound and southbound. They're black lights with a green and a red. That's the only thing on the lights. Also off of 275 and 7 Mile, there's cameras.
Yeah, there's a
The
big
cameras,
camera.
the cameras, as I mentioned, we came back from California. We've got pictures of it that are in our portfolio now. Massive numbers of cameras, and usually 4 on every intersection. Not all that sophisticated in many cases. Very straightforward security type cameras. Though the ones that are on the interstates and on the state highways have their own satellite dish link. In fact, each one has its own link.
Yeah, you're talking about the ones on the large 150-foot poles.
Yeah.
This one's on a regular light pole.
Yeah, they're over 7 Mile.
Well, they're all over those are all the way across the state to Battle Creek now and Kalamazoo.
No, it films. It's
They're in.
It's on a light pole over the overpass,
Right.
and it's got a big cable at the bottom, and there's a generator. I was just thinking of parking my car and going up there pulling it.
Let's say thanks for the generator. That's what's happening down in Florida, strangely enough, is that they've been using solar panels. Strangely enough, after they put these things up, the solar panels started to disappear. And the same in Louisiana. It's the same thing. These nice, neat packages that'll power 110. They have their own storage cells, the whole 9 yards. They're being picked up and carried away. Now, heaven knows what's happening to them, but usually there's a note that says, thanks for all the fish. Need more. So we're happy with that. But the situation with tactical support, and this is what we've been, the last couple of months we've been really stressing this, infrastructure. We have to have the infrastructure. We have to have, if every person had a pickup truck, does not have to be a $28,000 brand new Dodge. In fact, just the reverse. You don't need that. You need something older, something that for about $1,000 or less, a couple $100, and then bring it up in grade. When the time comes, if it's damaged or destroyed, you don't care. Transportation of that type is a luxury that you appreciate until such time as you have to get rid of it. When you get rid of it, you kick it off to the side of the road and you keep on going. And as long as we have, think about right here, how many households are represented. If you figure out the number of households here, most of which, by the way, already have some form of either truck or van or whatever, then figure that times how many tons we can actually lift in just one trip. And realize that, again, not only going out, but can you return casualties? Can you recover equipment that's damaged, bringing it back into our infrastructure for refabrication? And yes, that sounds like it's paraconventional. It is going to be a paraconventional war. It's not going to be an all-guerrilla war. We're going to have the capability to hold whole pieces, in fact, whole sections of the United States and keep it. The important thing is the word keep it. That means that we've got to be ready to have medical support. We have to be ready at industry level.
Manufacturing.
That's right, industry, manufacturing, and all types of raw material fabrication. It also means we've got to support the farmers because we've got to have the food. In fact, I'd prioritize that over manufacturing initially because we're resource rich as far as raw materials going, equipment that can be utilized or can be converted. What we are desperately going to be in need of is food production for the long run, not just for the first year, but for years down the road.
You think they're not going to try to contaminate it with NBC warfare, though?
They may try to a limited extent, but remember, you don't shit in your own nest.
That's true.
They're trying to take
And that's the best polite term I can use because with these characters, they want this piece of real estate. This is what it's all about. The water and the food here are the linchpin to the Michigan area because of the Area 5. Because this is 78 or 82% of the world's fresh water is right here in Michigan. You control this, you control a good percentage of the rest of the United States because you can bollocks up the watershed.
So is about 60% of the world's supply of wheat.
Yep. And unfortunately for that, one of the other problems that we're running into, we traveled the last couple of months here, we are seeing articles when we're away from Michigan all about food shortages. In Texas, they were talking about it, and it's regional. If you get up here, you don't hear as much. You get out in California, they were talking about it extensively. And how, boy, we just don't know what happened, and why we're short food, and why we can't feed people. Now, that's a crock. The Department of Agriculture has so heavily engineered our food processes that we're way below what was considered to be minimal standard. Our technology is better, and we're producing less food.
Well, that's because they're paying the farmers off,
That's
paying them
right.
not to grow.
Right, what few farmers there are that are left.
Or they ran a lot of them out of business.
Well, that was the whole idea, competition.
Well, that's your capitalist system for you, hard at work. All the corporate farms.
Archer Daniels.
And we can also,
Yeah.
for the short term, steal their military MREs, steal their medical supplies,
Anything that
steal their vehicles,
Anything
steal
that isn't
their
nailed down gets carried away, yes. Now that gets us to another point is remember policy with regard to operations. Strip them of everything and feed them to the dogs. After all, I can't afford dog food anymore. And we're going to have to, it is something to consider. There's a lot of other problems here, but we're going to have to deal with health and welfare. And we've had some experience with that. We've got good people who have worked over a number of years. I believe the psychologists and the shrinks are going to be a thing of the past. I think everybody will agree with that by the time we're done.
You got that Holly Bibble thing.
That's right. The lawyers are another problem there because we should be, if we're educated properly, more than competent and capable of defending ourselves. And in fact, there is no reason why we shouldn't be able to once it's properly done, once the education system's back online where it should be.
With common law.
Yes, with common law. Now, this may seem, again, the urgency has not changed. And in fact, I don't think anybody will disagree with this, that with the situation the way it is now, there is so much that is overtly taking place. I can't see how somebody can deny it. The only thing they're doing now is trying to figure out which side they're going to sit on. And some of them are trying to sit the fence longer because they feel one way or another they'll be able to play the crest of the wave. That isn't going to happen because unfortunately there are so many people out there that are boiling kegs of steam waiting to go off. When they do, we're not going to be there to stop everybody, guys. That's what you got to remember too. We're going to have to watch that. We're going to have to make sure, as I said before, education is the key. We got to get to people before this becomes a catastrophe.
Do you find that there's a good cross-fertilization of, for lack of a better term, camaraderie between Normalson and what he's doing and what's filtering down and the various groups that are scattered all over the place? Or is there a lot of independence that is emerging?
There has to be independence, and we're promoting that because the Olson, actually what we're calling Wolverine units are just another regimented unit like many of the others that have already been in place. Now the thing to remember is, just as what happened with Lexington and Concord, the unit that stood at Lexington didn't stand any possibility of stopping the British. Any man who stood up there on that line knew full well that when they faced with roughly a platoon of infantry against a couple of battalions of British Redcoats, that the outcome was preordained should somebody pull a trigger. And as is obviously the case, it's exactly what happened. Our regimented units are literally going to be those that create the Lexington or the Concord situation again. They are going to become the target. And that's one of the things I've been explaining, that is the cold reality. Because of their high visibility. Because of their high visibility, they will seek them out. Now, they can't do everybody. That's one of the things you better all remember, is that the logic they use is the same thing Orwell talked about with the helicopters. The helicopter in Orwell's, and it's true today, it's happening right now, the concept of the helicopter in Orwell's book is that hovering from above, nobody could be quite sure who they were watching. So that level of terror was like a blanket over the whole group. Well, that's what they're trying to do with the news media and everything else, with the article we just watched on TV. Nobody knows for sure who's next. Well, we're going to make sure that doesn't happen. Whoever happens to be next, like with a Waco type situation or any confiscation, is going to have to be, that'll be the line. That's going to have to start it right there.
That's our Concord.
That's our Concord. We've had our Lexington. That's
Waco
finished.
and Ruby Creek was our Lexington. The next one
That's
will
right.
be our move, and we will converge on it en masse, and they will lose big time.
The sad part is that, and you can already see this. Now, we talked about this, and it's already happening, and it's happening on a larger and larger scale. The American military is being spread across the planet so thin that it is inconceivable, no matter where they are in any single area, they can defeat the enemy. Just take a look at the math. We're already in Haiti. That's just close to home, so that's not too far away. It's a 90-mile spit in the bucket there.
We also talked about that in U.S. News.
Yep. Okay. They didn't even give real numbers there, by the way. If you'll notice, they were playing the numbers down because they didn't talk about Peru or Colombia. There's 22 to 28,000 there. We're in Rwanda. We are there. There's no doubt. We demonstrated that. We're still in Somalia with our toes in the fire there. We're in Yugoslavia, Macedonia.
Botswana.
Then on top, yeah, Botswana. We've got, in addition to that, though, we're still in Korea, guys. We haven't stood down in Korea. Now we've gone into this situation whole hog, and with 54,000 people in Iraq, these are all frontline combat troops. Now, realistically, let's say that a percentage of their commanders are New World Order types, because remember, some of them are command and control people. CNC people are taken to the CFR, Council on Foreign Relations headquarters, for 1 year. They're released from military duty and taken there for indoctrination, and that is a known fact. Colin Powell was a CFR member. Bottom line. That's why, if you'll notice, who showed up down at Haiti for no good reason at all. And in fact, if you notice, he had what looked like the Cheshire Cat grin on his face all the while he was down there. It was a dog and pony show. Why send Jimmy Carter? Why send none down there the way they did? They all were supposed to show their dynamics, ha ha ha, and take the heat off the administration, because Jimmy Carter was never deemed to be a success when he was president. Why send him down there now? So that there'd be create confusion and frustration on everybody's part, because that way it was his fault when the time comes. Well, it was Jimmy, it was Bill, it was Jimmy, it was Bill. They're all one and the same. Doesn't make any difference.
By the way, I have several friends in the Corps out on the West Coast, and one fellow told me here a couple weeks ago that all of the Marine combat units have been gutted off the East Coast. There are none.
Makes sense.
And they're in the process of gutting them all off the West Coast. No combat units. He also said in January, when they begin the budgeting process for fiscal '96, that the Marine Corps is going to have to justify their existence.
They've been trying to do that for 30 years.
Well, you know what? I'll tell you something. If they give me the Marine Corps or give you the Marine Corps, then all we can say is thank you. I'll have no problem with a 250,000 Marines in the hands of the militia, because as soon as they do that to us, I mean, as soon as they do that to U.S. military, us as in the U.S., those men are going to see the writing on the wall. And in fact, I think the problem they had is just like we saw in Desert Dust 1. Now we're into Desert Dust 2. The adventure continues. And with 54,000, and they said they're now, first they tried to come up with an excuse to stop this. Remember, they said they were going to hold back on sending those troops there. They're sending them there anyway now.
Right.
Between all these different locations we've sent our troops, guys, if we do get into a major confrontation, say in the United States, and it is between the New World Order crowd and patriotic Americans, if those commands are loyal to the United States, how did they get back?
They don't.
Thank you. And so what you have is World War II and Corregidor all over again,
That's
and
what they were told us.
Bataan a dozen times over, from Africa to Asia, and from Asia to Europe again. And some commanders will get some of their equipment back, by the way. Not so much equipment, but they'll get the manpower back, and we better hope we do, because we can build machinery. What we can't do is make another Patriot or another good soldier. It takes 20 years. It takes a minimum of 16 to get somebody who is roughly functional. But all these people that we have that are skilled, they're going to be priceless. And remember, Germany did not, in World War II, they were bombing the snot out of it. In 1941, it produced fewer planes with no bombing than they did in 1944 with all of their factories underground. The problem is they didn't have the pilots. They didn't have the tank crews. They didn't have the men that they needed to man the equipment. They could make more, and they made better by 1944. And that's the situation they're trying to put us in, because there's no other way you can look at it. They've got to spread to the wind. And that is, again, part of this continual action of sedition and treason against the United States, because they are planning this demise. It is not accidental. Anybody who's sitting down and looking at this, especially from this object, with us as part of this global village, understands that there's going to come a time when they're going to decide that we're just one of the bullies on the block. Well, if that's the case, then they're going to come back over here and decide to take what's left that we do have. And first use our own people against us. Use our own honor against us is the best way to describe it. Men, all you guys who are in service here know when we swore to protect and defend the Constitution, it was with good intention and honor that we did so. Then they turn around and take that honor and use it against us. We're still honorable with our oath, but they're not honorable in their contract. And in this case, exactly what's happening now.
I had a friend, he's getting out of the Marines next week. He said back in April, they confiscated all their gas masks, so they don't do anything about that. He said, and he wasn't even aware, I just talked to him, he's on reserves right now, active reserves, but he's also working for a fire department and an emergency medical response team. But I was going to bring him to the meeting tonight, but he was working, he couldn't make it. I gave him some videos, I'll bring him to the next one. But he was, after I showed him a few things, he was like, oh, no wonder, this makes sense now. He was completely out of it.
Now he'll go pollute his unit.
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you
He was
something.
saying that they took all the gas masks. I says, well, have you got one? He says, no, they took them all. We can't even get them. They don't even have them in the warehouse. They shipped them all out somewhere. So do you have a clue what happened to that?
I have seen piles of gas masks. In fact, we've got about 1,000 M17 A1s and A2s that have been demilitarized. But for a change, they didn't break the lenses. And these could be revulcanized. What they do is cut the chipmunk cheek. Now, if they score it across where the cap is for the filter, that requires more of an effort to fix. But a lot of them, you got to remember, when you're doing 3, 4, and 5, and 600 of these things, you get a little tired of doing this after a while. And after a while, you kind of look around and go, yeah. And that's what they did. The lenses are intact. All the voice emitters and everything are there. These filters have been pulled out. So yeah, we have to have filters, which is not a big deal. We have about 200 or 300 in service that are stored right now. But if somebody wanted to start that as a project, we have about 300, I would say, out of the whole bunch that are Class A that could be put back online right away. And that would be just the cost of revulcanizing and throwing the filters and the caps on. And that's something, again, that's about a $100 gas mask, $50 to $100 depending where you buy it. But the military, they're probably pulling them out. I guarantee even if they're brand new in the wrapper, I have seen mountains of them so tall they dwarf this house, and this house is over 2 stories tall. And they're all brand new masks that they literally cut right in two, pulled them right out of the wrappers, unwrapped them, and slit them right in two and smashed the lenses. Nothing wrong with them, none of them outdated. That's your tax dollars at work. They could have gone to civil defense, but if they went to civil defense, then we'd have them, wouldn't we?
You have access to extra lenses?
We can get some.
I have one extra set in mine, but I'm keeping it in my case.
Filters, we have some for the M17.
You can use just a regular see-through plastic bag, like the one they use for the gas mask, the thick ones. Put those over your head and have it tied or secured, and cut a hole for the filter and put the rubber band around that. You can make expedient.
I've made my own lenses. Acrylic, put it in the oven at 150, 200 degrees, it's soft, and I formed it over my old lens and I made myself a new lens. It was cracked.
By the way, thank you, the improvising here. Something I was looking at is we need to have our anti-skunk work in motion. You know, notice they've been pushing this thing with the skunk works, where they brought up all the special super technology. You know, think about this. The F-117 fighter, which is the ultra stealth fighter, it can't be picked up on radar. Supposedly it's the ultimate in death mania machines for the New World Order crowd. Well, we may not be able to make a jet, but imagine that as a droppable weapon system from any type of aircraft or even rocket assisted to launch based on the exact same design. It could then carry any weight in ordnance, and there's virtually no way they would know it's coming.
You know
Mimic the technology, which is not that complicated. To get the dimensions, we have enough photographs now that have been publicly accessible. And they've even made a quote-unquote scale model of the actual aircraft, not the one that they claimed was the stealth fighter and wasn't. And taking that technology and applying it with all the other trinkets that we have out there, just I want to plant the seed to make sure people start to think that technology would allow us to launch something deep into the enemy's heart, wherever they are, and it would be the same technology they're using on us. And again, as they said, it has the radar signature of the eye of an eagle. Not the size of an eagle, not the size of a barn, but about the dimension on radar. It picks it up about as if it were about the size of a small ball bearing. In other words, there's no radar signature. Now imagine just taking the exact same design, put a booster rocket behind it, just like they used to do with the space shuttle now. Get it up, release it, and it glides into its target area. Virtually silent, no signature, no thermal image. And when it goes in, well, use your creative imagination as to what kind of warhead you have going in with it.
Like a V1 or V2.
That's right.
Only use radar on us, though, because I don't even think they're expecting us to come back with anything.
Well, you got to remember that Patriot Air Force elements probably are 50-50. I think we would have at least 50% of the available air assets of the Air Force on our side. Maybe more.
Still in country, really.
Still in country, but also overseas. Some of them will get back in before before they cut off their fuel. Some of them will try to get back in and probably get shot down in a number of different ways. But the Patriot Air Force elements that we've already spoken to that are out there are quite extensive. Contrary to what the other side tried to convince everybody that the New World Order has total control, that is not the case.
Another little neat trick you can use is natural gas is lighter than air. And garbage bags filled with natural gas, they float real well. And if you have enough tied together, you might even be able to tow up a nice cable in the air at nighttime, which raises havoc with helicopter blades.
And radars and everything else, yes.
Yeah, weather
literally,
Rocket kits.
weather balloons with steel, well, that's right, so weather balloons with steel tethers, and not put at a high altitude, by the way. Remember, helicopters like to fly NOE, nap of the earth. With night vision, they can actually see quite well. The problem is that they like to fly blind corners. If you have weather balloons posted in erratic positions and do enough of them, especially with helium or hydrogen to fill them with that, they'll stay there indefinitely. You can raise virtual spider webs.
Yeah, you can buy.
It would not be that complicated.
I buy quarter-inch or 5/32 steel cable for garage doors. You can pick up a spool of cable for $20, put it on the end of a weather balloon.
Always have that little transmitter out there transmitting some little tape
By the
the
way,
message every so
uh,
often
one
to
of the
draw
other-
them into the area.
Another good tactical weapon. Is anybody into
But natural
radio?
gas is very readily available.
Easily
Methane gas is not as strong as helium or hydrogen. Of course, hydrogen you just use your electrolysis. You can make plenty of hydrogen.
That's right.
Is anybody into radio-controlled airplanes?
Yep.
They make some big radio-controlled airplanes.
1/20th scale now using Briggs and Stratton lawnmower engines. Now you take something like that and go, and it doesn't come back, it just goes out.
Kamikaze
And you
tank.
turn it into a pinata, a Penton or Semtex pinata, and put a shape charge on the nose so it all blows in one direction.
Gee, there's an awful lot of places in this country where, I mean, just a vantage point for a hill, you can see for miles.
And there's a lot of lawnmowers all the way around this country, all over this country too. See, again, we are resource rich, and one thing about the American people, just like many of the people on the planet, but more so with us, with all the trinkets that we have to play with, we can be more than creative enough and raise havoc with anything that they put into the air.
The other thing you have to consider now is fuel fabrication. You got to synthesize your own fuel. Start thinking about that.
That's part of the infrastructure question. Is absolutely initially there again too, as a stopgap, fuel storage is important. The other thing that we've been hitting hard is water storage. In the same breath, also basic chemicals and components. If you can access something that somebody else wants to get rid of and it can be stored, if it needs to be repackaged to be stored, do so. Especially if it's a safer container. You have no idea what some of it may be used for right away, but down the road there may be a need because we can create an available strategic list of material on hand for an area or for a whole state or for a whole series of states. And that will improve our production capabilities. Reloading is another thing. Absolutely every household must have reloading capabilities.
You know anybody who reloads in mass quantity, have them save primers, the spent primers.
Yeah. Spent primers must be held. They can be refabricated. Steel cases can be refabricated. 22 cases can be modified in other components. Anything that is manufactured that has to do with the firearm must be saved.
Does somebody have a formula for repacking the primer?
There are several different types that can be used. You can actually come up with a fulminate type material that is corrosive, but again, people are worried about corrosion, corrosive primers. Trust me, you will clean your weapon. If your life depends on it, you'll make every effort to make sure that weapon is clean enough that it will save your life when the time comes.
They have been for 100 years. So
That's
don't worry
right.
about it.
Mark, 76239 is $6 something a box at Walmart now, which at 1,000.
For American?
Remington. That brown
That's a good
box
price.
reload, that's a very good price. That's
It's
1,000 rounds, roughly for around $300, which is almost what you're paying at the gun show.
That's right.
I think you're getting $13.20 for $350 now at the gun show, or $400. I've seen as high as $400 now.
Oh yeah.
We can expect
Where's Walmart?
a series of other problems with supply.
Hull. There's one.
There's one right in Ann Arbor. Or I'm sorry, Ann Arbor.
223, man, they got all kinds of ammo. The prices aren't bad. The 9mm is comparable to the prices you'll find at the gun show.
How much is
How much is 9?
$9 a box, I think it was.
Get a gun show.
How about 223?
That's 253.
You can still get that down
I
to
know.
20.
$4.50.
Do you have to produce a driver's license
It's
to buy?
$5 at the
No.
gun show.
Not yet.
No, you will soon.
Now, that leads us to another problem. The crime bill was more extensive than expected. Only a couple of us have the discs with everything on it, and it's still not everything because there are sheets that still haven't been filled in. That's a fact. However, there are a series of other pieces of legislation that are in motion that are as destructive, if not more destructive, than the crime bill. NAFTA, of course, was the first thread. GATT is pretty well in motion. I think it'll be done. But when they come back, especially lame ducks, if they didn't get it already and they didn't, when they come back, they will not care about their voting situation. They must finish that part of the agenda and eliminate the tariffs and trades.
I was told that they were supposed to vote on that the 30th of November.
That would make sense.
Has anybody seen this new deal? Michigan's got something that they're proposing where they have a whole list of the bad guns, so to speak, that you're going to have to bring in within 60 days and all this kind of thing.
Committee,
Talk about that.
at the state level, they they want to build a committee to identify weapons to be confiscated.
That bill,
That legislation.
though, is in Jack Wellborn's committee. It's not enough.
Oh, really?
You know,
Did you hear
Because
Engler
Nick-
in the debate yesterday?
no.
They asked him if he supported a concealed weapons permit law in Michigan. He goes, no.
No.
Scuba goes, well, Tom Washington and the NRA supports it. He goes, well, I'll have to look into it.
What about Alan Cropsey's bills, 5343?
They won't see the light of
After-
day till January if
Yeah,
they get out
after-
of committee.
Those have a
After the
chance, I
election.
mean, I wonder.
Well, the point is, okay, one thing to remember, anybody, if we can get any friendly senators or representatives to propose any pro-firearms legislation that will not put any requirements upon us, but will try to attack whatever they have on the books, then that is good because it puts the other side on the defensive, and that's what needs to be done. It still is going to it'll do nothing but buy us some time, and with the situation strategically the way it is, I don't believe any of the legislation is relevant anymore.
I don't either.
The reality is that they have an agenda. The only reason we haven't heard about all of it is because, again, there's so much out there that even the media can't cover it all every day. And there's just the public announcements that we're seeing. As a matter of fact, John had a copy of the one here, but this one is this is on the civilian inmate labor program. I'm going to make sure I read this one too. This is when we
The
actually.
guy that has relevance
No.
has the full thing.
Okay. This
You
particular.
got one of those, Ernie?
That's a 50
You know what I mean?
page.
There's,
That's a
we'll get you
50
the
Yeah, I
full
know.
report. We'll get you the
I
full
understand.
report.
Like 12 pages. Isn't
The
it?
interesting thing is, well, hold on. The interesting thing is that this is one of the summaries. This is the cover sheet, along with the other neat parts that are about it. But remember that Communist China, this is how they get a lot of work done, and they get it done for nothing. In fact, they actually buy inmates. What you do is like what we're seeing in the United States right now. Virtually everything that we're going to do is a crime.
Oh, yeah.
If everything that we're going to do is a crime, then now you have a criminal labor force to draw from. If for instance, protesting is going to be a 2-year felony, that means you have a 2-year, what did they call that? Oh, that's right, indentured servitude, just like the King of England had against all of his people when we revolted in this country. And indentured servitude still did survive for a period of time after the Revolution until it was done away with. And that meant it didn't make any difference. Not all slaves were black. People got to remember that.
My grandfather, 5 times removed, came over under.
As an indentured servant, it was very common, and people understand that you were virtually chattel and property. And that's what you're seeing here again. They're using another form. They're taking our documents, turning them on their head, and right in front of everybody, because everybody else's, their logic is, well, it's going to be that other guy that's a criminal. Oh, really? Did you wear your safety belt today?
Do you have
Well, I was just going to the grocery store, excuse me.
Yeah.
That'll be 30 days. Oh, and by the way, we have, of course, our low labor intensive facility located just outside of Ann Arbor where they're making Happy Meal toys now, too. Notice how all those Happy Meal toys are made in Communist China? All the little trinket toys like Donald Ducks and Doodles and all that are made in China?
AR-15 toys from
Yeah.
Toys R Us.
Oh, shit. You know what
They're all from
You
China.
know what I got at home for you?
Those are banned.
Guy gave. You
Yeah,
remember?
they're banned now.
Remember our little trip a couple months ago down to Ohio? One of the fellas was at the gun show a couple of weeks ago, and he gave me something to give you, and I forgot it at home. It's came out of a Cracker Jacks box, and what it was
When you relax
is
long enough.
it's a little yellow bookmarker with a UN label, the UN insignia.
Well, be done.
On your label, you like it on your table.
Call that 800 number a few times, huh?
Yeah, oh, by the way, I was informed, though I haven't checked it, I'll have to look at my notes. There is a new gun control 800 number we've got to check on. I'll get the number out of my briefcase here in a little bit. But I think we'll have to deal with it the way we did the Y Guns number. And the Y Guns number, of course, if you tried anywhere in the country, and we have, we didn't just try in Michigan, so it's not that we can't get hold of them, just what they did is to cover themselves. When you call 1-800-Y-GUNS now, it says that you cannot reach this number from your area. Well, in reality, trust me, you can't reach it from any part of the country. We call from California, call from Texas, we call from every other part of the Union where we've flown, and the number no longer works.
What was
They
that?
blocked all the
Well,
areas.
it was a propaganda
Block
piece
control.
where they were, like, every so many seconds somebody dies from a gun. We need to get them out of the hands of the American people. You need to help us confiscate the guns in America, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And it was a whole propaganda piece, and they had the death clock in New
Oh,
York.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's what this is all tied into. Well, that 800 number is now extinct because every
Too many
place
people
we
call
flew
it.
and every place the kids fought over who was going to use the payphone first. And we, of course, went in our first trip down there to Texas the last time around. We were stuck at the Dallas hub for a couple hours. Well, we started out at gate 1, and we had to go to gate 43. And you realize how many payphones there are between gate 1 and gate 43 when you got a lot of time, and all you got to do is keep just dialing the same number.
And they send you a lot of free resources.
Well, yeah, but once you pick it up, you see, it was on automatic play. It was on loop play. So it would run for like about 2 minutes. Well, once you get it, you just put it on there and you go to the next one. And go to the next one. So then you hear it was running, just put the next one. So
Isn't that 1-800-FIGHT-CRIME or something that's in Michigan I've seen on TV now?
there's another one that's got, it's something like that.
Something
It's basically an ATF bat faggot number.
You just have to eat up their budget by
Right,
that's
putting
right.
Number.
They have X amount of dollars dog year for that.
They got a
program.
billboard on 75.
Oh, that's
that
right.
says
There is
if
a
you've had enough
1-800
and it
FEMA
shows a
number,
gun,
by the way.
Yeah, call 1-800
You
ATF
got that
guns.
listed though?
I can get it.
Well, if you have enough
What
guns, then
what
you
it
need ammo, so
basically-
call that number.
Hold up, Eric.
Listen up.
What it basically is sound bites that FEMA will provide for you. And they'll even give you a countdown prompt for your radio programs or television shows.
So you can use you can get FEMA ads, pick up FEMA ads via the
Public
FEMA
service.
system.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And are you still calling 1-800 ATF guns to eat up the budget? too?
Well, of course, every chance. Well, actually, it's not to eat up your budget. I just get scared a lot. When I get scared and I feel nervous and I'm worried about being protected, I call that 1-800 number because that way I know 1-800 ATF GUNS. I know that once I call that number, I hear the voice of that loving secret policeman on the other end of the line.
What do you say?
That I don't. Usually I just listen. I'm so inspired by their voice that I just get choked up. Now sometimes I may blurt out something and I can't remember what it is.
Maybe you ought to
But when I'm done, then I usually just hang up, and later when I'm walking through a mall or something and I start to get nervous again because I worry about gangs and violence, which I see on national television every day, then I go back to the phone and I get comforted once again. And I constantly do this. Sometimes I'm only 25 feet apart, but as this happens and I become more inspired by them, I become more confident and I can live and breathe through that evening. Because it's an 800 number and it costs money. But actually, the only reason I called is because, like I said, just for confidence purposes. I want to know that I'm protected.
Yeah.
And when I travel across the country, I check that number to make sure that they're close by. No matter where I am. And I found that number works all day.
Company on the 800 number, puts all their bills in.
That's right.
What about the UN flag in Michigan here? Monday?
Yeah.
I'm there.
What's the word on
The
that?
24th,
I'll be there.
they're supposed to be, the militias are supposed to be there. We understand that 3 or 4 different groups have organized rallies also. This is for the 24th.
I've got 3 UN flags.
Bring American flags with you.
I'm going to step on
What
it.
we did right over there, I don't care what you find, get a pole, put an American flag on
I'll
it,
give
and
you
the
one
best
by my
thing
house.
that you can do, I ask you, every one of these protests, no matter what you go to from now on,
Do it neatly.
every man that can carry an American flag, carry one. A full-size American flag. For any type of photo session or whatever you've got, I don't care, whatever they try, however they try to restructure it, when you have columns of American flags, it looks so impressive in the wind.
That's what Southwell suggested. American, bring all the American
I
flags. Have
called
the
them and
kids-
told them, that's what I told
Oh, you told
everybody,
them.
yes.
Should we have one
We
upside
brought
down?
it, well, it's your discretion, flag in distress wouldn't hurt, because obviously this country is in trouble, but at the very...
I wouldn't do that because I wouldn't give them the satisfaction of knowing that.
Well, and Joe Sixpack
we-
doesn't
they thought
interpret
we
it.
were,
He interprets it the other way. You know, the average guy doesn't know that's a sign of distress. He
Yeah.
just
Right.
thinks it's a sign of disrespect.
Yeah, well, it's same with burning the flag,
What
so...
if you see a British Admiralty flag? Should
Well, we
Buy
usually
someone down.
recommend that they disperse
Cut the
that flag.
fringe off.
Well, that's been done, so
Infringe
we
on
know.
it, yeah.
Put it on your lowriders.
We recommend that they take the flag down or
You heard- did you-
not that they relieve the flag for the time that's
Did
there.
you see about that deal 2 weeks ago over in Van Buren Township?
I gave you the
With the
video.
live ordinance that was found in the houses that
Yeah.
the BATF and the DOD were practicing in? Monday night or Tuesday night at the Van Buren Township meeting. Okay.
What happened?
He was there.
I nailed the township supervisor, and I said, by the way, you've got an Admiralty flag behind you. He made the comment about because he says he's a Vietnam vet. He probably spent most of his time down in Da Nang.
Cleaning shitters.
Anyway, he boasts this crap to me, and I said, that he was a Vietnam vet, and the first thing you noticed that I did when I came into the room is we said the Pledge of Allegiance. Yeah, I said, but you said it to the wrong flag, asshole.
Yeah.
An Admiralty flag.
So what happened in the meeting? Did you get down to the bottom line of why they did it? What was it about?
This is going to be somewhat of an ongoing political foray now for the next month. They got caught with their pants down bad.
That's what
Did you
I
ask
felt.
them if we can play? Maybe we can train with them?
Yes, oh yeah, can we, can the
We don't
militia?
have the legs for adaptive.
No, we'd like to have a joint training operation.
Well, I'll tell you what, they have
After all,
been,
they do with the United Nations.
they
why
have
don't we
been
just have a-
they have been chased out of Van Buren Township. They are not going to practice in Van Buren Township
Let's
again.
go to another one.
Good.
Or we'll have joint training. We'll have them bite a joint at the end of the training.
Yeah.
I guess they were training at the old train station in Detroit too.
Yeah, we heard about that.
They're doing some training in Romulus as well.
Yeah.
What we're seeing is a number of sites, and
Where?
again, the units are
Like
not all,
California Street in Romulus.
they're not all local police, they're bringing in outside elements from outside of the area, not just simply like the Detroit area, but outside of the states,
Yeah.
from other parts of the country and bringing them
Her
in.
son was coming back from Chicago, maybe a month ago at the most. He said when he got around Kalamazoo, there was all of a sudden there was two black helicopters over 94 just hovering, with guys hanging out with M60s. He said you could see the whites of their eyes. They were that close. And he said they were just
By the way,
over the freeway.
yeah, seen a number of Hueys now painted green, okay, with the UN letters underneath the cockpit.
No kidding.
Yeah, right on the bottom of
Is that a good target?
Has
Feel free to shoot
Target
them
of
down.
opportunity. I wish. You see, that's one of those things. Like I said, don't be surprised,
Chip-
shocked and amazed.
Chip Bishop,
If there's one outside of this house, especially at low altitude, then he's got his name.
West
his name is written.
of
Duck
Lansing,
season. And
It's
they
in
are
the book.
green.
That's right.
They are flying.
west of Lansing, Chip Bishop about a month ago spotted and talked to some helicopter crews that had dogs.
They're sniffing ordnance.
Yeah, they're sniffing. He called the military personnel called them gun dogs. Sniff for ordnance.
Cayenne pepper spray. Tell everybody this again.
Screws up dogs.
Cayenne spray, the big fire extinguisher size cayenne pepper spray in any strength. It doesn't have to be bear strength.
Screws up the
If you can still get the bear guard strength and 10%,
I got that.
fine.
So does
Ohio.
Does it screw up their senses?
Absolutely,
it?
it'll mess them up right there on the spot. What you do is, in escape and evasion operations, or especially if you're working with columns or elements, what you do is you want to move into areas where you have restricted terrain, where you have waterways, especially where you have lakes and ponds and swamps. You want a situation where you have a saddle between two water masses. This will channel the track of the critters. The last man saturates the area, and then beyond that you can lay a booby trap or whatever you'd like to eliminate the problem as they work through it, to try and work through the permeated area. They'll come out the other side without their senses, and
skunk stuff does the same thing.
Beetle mercaptan.
well, the nice thing about the CN powder spray is that it's now in containers that are large enough.
Yes.
And it's well pressurized. You can saturate an area, and again, if it's narrow, so it's controlled. Keep your troops in column, pass through the area, saturate the area, and then set up. For instance, if you want to, you can even use manpower. A couple of pickets with heavy long-range rifles, and anything that comes to the other side, they'll be a little disoriented. They'll be trying to get through quick. When they do, that's where they end up staying, right there.
Or permanently destroy the dogs. Have one jug or water jug of bleach, one of ammonia, and make your own little puddle. Go through. Makes for nice gas, nice mustard gas.
Mark, have you heard about the Oakland County Sheriff's Department supposedly having armed helicopters and an elite 40-man, I don't want to call them SWAT or special response.
Special reaction teams or special response teams.
They have, this is what was related to me by a friend of mine who talked to the father of this gentleman, and they're given 3 sets of uniforms, black, white, and camo, 3 pairs of boots, Kevlar body armor, Kevlar helmets. They have been issued HK MP5s, the small ones, with little handles underneath them.
Wait a minute, they're being what 3 uniforms?
Camo, white and black, and they have M60s, M14s, M60s. They don't really have a per se set mission, but all of the guys are under 35, been relatively new to the Sheriff's Department, and they feel like they're the elite of the elite.
They die faster because usually they're stupid.
I just wonder if you heard anything about it, because this just came up in passing in the conversation. But have you heard anything about this?
Well, on the one hand, we've had people who have attended meetings here, for instance, who have said that they are with the Oakland County Department and that they are with us. and then all the way up through the command structure, as we have heard, that they're actually supportive. Now, this may be a way for them to justify creating combat units that may be faithful. On the other hand, it could have been a dog and pony show again, designed to keep us busy thinking they're friendly. I mean, it's going to be up in the air. They're going to have to show when the time comes.
And I heard that it was all federally funded.
Yeah, absolutely, because it'll all be through the crime bill or through MJTF funds, multi-jurisdictional task force.
And the new money that Clinton just appropriated a week ago too.
Yes. He allocated it out by political standing. You'll notice that they even were those people that were willing to support the true spirit of the crime bill were the ones who got the money. In other words, those who were willing to sell their souls are the ones who got the money. In fact, this whole problem, again, is what I've been warning people. The rank and file are who you have to start with. You have to start from below up. Don't try to start with the command structure down, because the capstone, that's what they targeted first. That's the people, you can't buy them. They've already been bought. Now, maybe you got a few that are faithful, and there's a percentage we'll find out by action when the time comes. Rule number 1, you will know them by their acts. And that's exactly what's going to happen here. You're going to see them for what they are, their true colors when the time comes. It's going to be hard. It's like aircraft. Some pilot asked me, well, what should we do in the first day when all this starts? I say, stay out of the air. If you're in the air, I won't know who you are, and chances are, if you get a helicopter of some kind, you're going to see 30 caliber holes. It's going to happen because people are not going to be discretionary. There's a lot of people who aren't going to know. If you think you can get in, the best possible thing that they could probably do, and it's going to end up being our signet is going to be the American flag, because the other side won't be using it. Notice something different on the flags, by the way. Did you notice down in Haiti?
Yeah, the banner's reversed.
They're reversed.
Yeah,
that's right. And they're Admiralty flags.
They're gold trim,
They're all
and
gold
the
trim.
blue is on the right instead of the left. The blue field is on the right side. They're backwards, like a mirror image.
Trying to find out, because now with the old with some of the heraldry guidelines, for instance, remember you have a war eagle and a peace eagle. Well, normally we have the peace eagle. The head is pointed towards the olive branches.
Right.
If you look on older pieces that are done, the war eagle, they'll change the direction of the head. And it'll usually be canted up on about a 35, 40 degree angle.
Mark got a call from a minister. He runs a Christian school up near Romeo. He said somebody in their church spotted new pennies in circulation. I don't know. Something to look out for.
Well, I'll
Has
tell you
anybody
what,
seen any
take
new
get a
change?
handful of 94 pennies and 94 dimes right now, and they're even lighter than they've been. The dimes are even poorer clad than they've been in the past. Probably more copper, less of the nickel, and little or no silver. So
And
the weight is gone.
The dollar hit probably I was checking the
lowest in
email
2
yesterday
years.
on work. A dollar hit the lowest with the French.
Hit the lowest of the
French
German
franc.
mark today.
Mark. Yeah.
What was the exchange ratio? 1 to 1?
2, I think it was 2.
It
It says lowest in 2 years.
It's
2 point something?
1.5.
Traditionally, the Deutschmark, the exchange was about 4 to 1 or 6 to 1.
1.5 mark,
Yeah.
something like that. 1.5 something marks.
That's
It
pretty
was the
good.
lowest in 2 years today.
And Swiss franc, it's dropping like all summer long. It's been dropping like a rock.
Of course,
What
the
do you
Fed-
think about selling out your house and just renting a place until all this happens, and investing your money in like silver and gold and stuff just to?
I think property is still the real wealth.
Yeah.
Farmland.
What are we fighting for?
Yeah, but your property, once they devalue and everything, and you owe a mortgage.
That's if you were going to play the game. We're not playing their game anymore.
No.
You can kiss
See,
the mortgage goodbye.
mortgage won't be irrelevant. The bank won't be relevant, and the government that's trying to take your property isn't going to be relevant, because that's who you're. The government that we're talking about is going to be our government anyway. We're going to
So
be facing
basically, what I was talking earlier about looking at a place, I should go ahead and with that or what?
I would recommend getting something, if you can get more property, even though it's less effectively developed.
Right.
I would recommend more physical land and title.
Farmland.
Once all of this is done, land title is still, it's going to go on from generation to generation, despite conflict, because people want continuity.
Right.
Money does not denote continuity, but land titling does. All wealth comes from the soil, the land. So
Yeah,
with
but
that in place, that's why they're taking it from us. That's why they did everything they did with the property taxes.
If they declare
So we need to
bankruptcy,
hold property. We need to hold land. We don't want to become, well, we literally don't even want to become Bedouins on our own piece of real estate. We may have to,
Right.
if need be. We're going to for a period of time. But whatever you have title on now, when the time comes, you will have title later.
because if they officially declare bankruptcy, you can specifically tell them, listen, you lent me credit, so you've really lent me nothing. I borrowed nothing. I owe you nothing. I have the title.
Jerome
Take
Daly
I.
did that in 1968.
You want to
In Minnesota.
remember too, when you have property as real estate, you own the property. The bank only has a lien against it.
Right.
They only have a lien against it.
What's going to happen when you can't make your payments?
Well, that's
what
a
I
breach
want.
of contract.
But the
can't
but
make-
There are
no,
no dollars to pay.
When the time
So
comes,
you-
but you're thinking that we're unlike times in the past, we're going to physically be at war by then. Before that ever happens, it's not going to be, before you have to really worry about that, this whole situation will be so dramatic that any attempt to try and work through their system without accepting all of their instruments, which means you'll become a slave, it just isn't possible. You can't work around that at that particular point in time. We will be in a confrontational, militant environment by then.
The only thing that-
way before then.
The only thing that troubles me is like you were saying, they're going to end up getting part of the land, okay, or part of the country.
They'll try.
Okay, what if this is the part that they're going to take? I don't want my land if it's going to be in the middle of what they have.
Well, remember, for a period of time they will have it, and then eventually it will be ours again. When the time comes, then the physical wealth will go back to you. And that's why you have to have title. You want to have the paper in hand.
Don't sweat the small stuff.
And in fact, you have to. It'll be determined. And in fact, that's what the common law courts were for, to settle disputes like that take place. That's really their only purpose. They weren't, we weren't supposed to have this massive full-time government. We weren't supposed to have this massive judicial system we have now to work with that bureaucratic government.
With implied contracts.
That's right, with implied contract to keep them afloat, to give them the illusion of being legal. All this garbage is supposed to be thrown out the door, and our real concern is getting back to living, which is hard to convince people to do. I mean, they've got us into this whole licentious trap where it's a spiral downward. We're going to have to cut the strings, take our losses. If we are in a situation like that, where you're in a piece of real estate that's going to be occupied, you're going to be in the middle of the fight anyway. At that point in time, I'll burn this place behind me if I thought it was a threat to our own resource. If I thought they were going to use it, I'd burn anything or destroy anything in my path behind me as I was leaving.
Well, that's what I'm
that
getting
I
at.
thought they might need.
It could be a waste of my resources now.
No, because it still comes down to, again, continuity. When the time comes, it will come back to you. I'm always looking to the future. I'm not looking at this as a dead end, one-way street to find a place to die. You've got to look at the fact that our intentions are to live through this as best we can. Historically, man has always had to do this. In our case, we've been fortunate. For this century, we haven't had to think this way again for a while. A lot of people are going to go into catatonic brain fart for that reason. Because it's like, I got to do something now. Instead of saying him do it, let's buy him. Let's go buy him. Let's buy him to do it. You're not going to have enough wealth to do that.
Right.
And it's come down to the point where the only wealth, what little wealth you do have, is what they want to take. So we're back down to the common, simple denominator we started out with. We have to stand together to hold on to what wealth we have. That's going to be a heck of a knockdown, drag-out fight in the process. And like I said tonight, all you got to do is look in the eyes of the media. They were not confident, and they're not confident, and they've been laughing at us for years. I've watched, I can show you news spools that I've got from the last 10 years. Some of them are actually 10 years old. I was scratching my head wondering, in 1984, that's 10 years ago.
You gotta understand, news and great means amusement.
Yes.
Amuse.
Yeah.
Means unthink, not to think.
Yeah.
Amuse.
Amuse. So we're dealing with a situation that does not surprise any of us, but you have to change your mindset. We still have to have an eye to the future, but if what you're saying it takes place, then it will not threaten anything that you have. It will not affect your wealth, because wealth won't be relevant at that point. Wealth will be the number of rounds that you do have that you can still carry in your field gear, the equipment you got on your back, and the weapon you're carrying.
The MREs in your pack.
And the equipment deployed to the rear. And
Well, what about going into debt then? I mean, he's probably wondering, if I got to go buy
then
this
you go
place
the other way. When I
$130,000
go crazy
or whatever.
I said, well, that's where you can keep those plastic cards handy just before things fall over, because you can walk on and go here. And it's like, oh yeah, I'll pay for that next month.
Yeah, but I mean, he's saying he's going to sell his place in here, move out, and go into debt. A bunch of money. I mean, and if it's going to fall apart.
If you've got a house and you got a mortgage, you're already in debt. It's just a point of where you want to be in debt.
Where you want to be when you're in debt. And the other consideration here is, and I would say this, if I were to sell this place, I would not buy something of comparable cost. I would buy something with what money I had, so that I would have no debt.
Right.
So that if I did have to worry about that short period of time where they tried to, for instance, accelerate the taxes. Remember this, anytime that governments have gotten into catastrophic debt like this, even in this century, They've accelerated the tax levels. They've accelerated inflation and created hyperinflation. If you have that debt, if that basic debt is eliminated, then the only thing you do have to worry about are the taxes. You might be able to skimp by for a period of time to give yourself some breathing space. Because that's all we're looking at. All of these are simply stopgap measures leading to a catastrophic military event. We are on a road, in fact, I'll repeat this, we had a gentleman, he's 72 years old, and that man was, I'll tell you what, he did not look 72 years old. But, you know, you could tell he was aged, but this man, he came up to me in Seattle, and he said, you know, Mark, he said, I didn't want to talk to you all day, because I knew you were busy. He said, I just wanted to see you tonight before we left, because tomorrow we'll be here again. He said, I've been in 3 wars. He goes, I've seen each time that war has come about specific actions. He said, I can taste it, I can smell it, and now I can just about see it. And that, historically, as he said, we're here. This is it. And this is a person, he said, at 72 years old, I did not want to have to fight another war. But there is no place left to run. There is no place left to go. We have gone the length of our rope. We've bought all the time we can. This is it. And the worst part is you can go tonight home at 11 o'clock and turn on the television and we're going to see some aspect of this nonsense. The thing that really pisses me off is that were it not for the old problem throughout history, the traitor inside the gate, this would not have happened in this country. Were it not for a series of people who feel that they're going to profit and profiteer from the demise of this nation. You got some sickos out there, by the way. You can go right here to Ann Arbor. People are saying, Ann Arbor, that the United States deserves what it's going to get. We ought to help them to help destroy them because we deserve what we're going to get. We deserve. I mean, they got this twisted self-flagellation thing going. You know, here, give me the cat of nine tails. No, myself.
Others are waiting socialists, and they're finally glad socialism is here. And they're going to punish
right,
us.
and that's part of the point is that their idea is they're in no way, shape, or form are they our friends. Their objective is punishment, not just of us, but of our families, of all of our relatives when the time comes, and to do exactly what they've done in every other country they've had control. We don't have to. I don't. In this case, if we just look at history, I don't have to live through this to see where the boot's going to hit and how it's going to strike and who it's going to hurt. Now, since we understand the capability of the enemy and we know what their threat level is and how they're accelerating, we have to start to understand or make other people understand this more effectively. And we need to push for our supreme effort now.
How do you
This
tell
is it.
How do you tell that to people who think you're crazy?
Best thing you can do, I'll tell you what, it's like I did. American Peril was done for one reason. American Peril was a tool. Once you give it to somebody, you know what was beautiful about American Peril, unlike other tapes now? American Peril was a history book. It was a future history, and I knew we could plot out part of it. We understood factually the rest of it. We had people uncategorically fight tooth and nail to hide or to try and stand in denial against most of what is now public information on the boob tube.
And it's 3 years old, the tape.
It's 3 years?
Almost a year and a half, 2 years old.
2 years?
2 years, almost 2 years old, yeah. The interesting thing about it is, with the signing of the crime bill, it is complete.
Right.
It is done.
We've had a lot of success showing people this thing.
Why did you film that with no audience?
Originally, it was just supposed to be a filming session. We were just going to go down and film it. In fact, a little running joke
impromptu.
here. It was impromptu. People started to find out we were there, so they came in and sat down. And it was the only reason that was filmed that way, by the way, is the cameraman normally panned the audience, and he automatically did what he always does. The worst part is my father sat on this couch about less than a month ago, and he goes, you know, I don't mind what you're doing. He says, I understand what's happening because I've seen this before. This is what we saw before World War II. He said, what you're seeing right now, we experienced in World War II, and it's all happening again. He goes, but he says, Mark, I hope one thing. I hope you're talking to more than 15 people now. It's like, yeah, I think we're talking to a few more than 15 people now. And if we'd opened the doors up, you know, it would have been a lot more than 15 people. I think there was a few more than 15 there. Of course, when the camera turned, everybody was kind of, do one of these numbers so you couldn't see their face quite, you know.
It's the first tape where you held up the AK-47 in the rope. Is that the first one?
No, it's two.
That's
two.
Okay, I haven't seen
That's
one.
American Peril 2, which is the Macomb County Taxpayers Association meeting.
That's where Mark retired the Admiralty flag. Now, if you get Straw Cutter's version, He got the flag with my
Leaving,
version.
you mean carried out.
Yeah, carried
You
out.
got the rope in there too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, people out west like that rope more than anything else. That is the most popular single tape. See this? What was funny from my end is to watch, if you recall in that tape, if you remember off to my left, there was about 15 politicians there. Only 2 of them smiled or laughed, and they were barely holding it in. The others all went kind of like, oh!
That rope's done for me.
It's like they could actually measure the neck size on that rope. They really could.
Were they the traders?
Yep. Well, what's interesting is, what I say, with regard to training people or educating people, just give them the first tape and don't tell them anything about it. So you want to watch this. Let them watch it and they say, well, I know all about that, I know about that, we knew about that, and explain to them, this tape wasn't done last week. This tape was done over a year and a half ago, and was done purely as a private event. It was designed so we could give it person to person to other people. There was no advertising for it. We made no effort to go to the media.
Is this the one that you passed around the box of cereal?
No, this was done before that even. This is actually going farther back. This is the way to remember it. We always figure by surroundings. There were a bunch of plants around me.
Yeah.
Nice. So the plants. Remember the plants, and you remember the site.
There was a question that came up in the debate between Abraham and Carr. A guy asked a great question. He says, I have a fear of this government losing its sovereignty to the United Nations. And Carr answered, yeah, the United Nations is great, and we should be supporting it, and I don't have a problem with our troops being under UN jurisdiction. Abraham said, I have a problem with our troops being under UN jurisdiction, under a commander of the UN, but I have no problem with working with the UN.
You know what? There's a joke right now that was repeated to us. That's going around the Beltway around Washington D.C.
What's the difference between that statement?
He moves 5 miles an hour, he moves at 25.
This is the whole point. If the Democrats tomorrow propose to burn down the Library of Congress, the Republicans would recommend to phase it in over a 3-year period.
Exactly.
That's the difference.
5 miles an hour and 25 miles an hour.
That's right. It's a matter of how it's done. That's the problem with this whole situation.
We need a none of the above lever.
We need them out of the
Category
U.S.
can write it in.
We need them out of the U.S.
That really is the best solution right there. If you do not like anybody on the ballot in any of them, you still vote and you write in anybody you can think of. Because if everybody did that and demonstrated their dissatisfaction with what was taking place, they could not hide it. How could you explain, or even say 15 or 20% of the votes showed up, but it showed up for nobody in particular? You didn't vote for anybody.
What's going on here,
Let's pick somebody. Let's pick somebody. Spread that name around. Have everybody fill that name in, like Donald Duck.
Pat Paulson.
Mark from Michigan.
Pat Paulson for years ran. You know what's really funny? This last election is the first time that they ever blocked Pat Paulson from running. Seriously, it was the first time ever. You know what I think they were scared of?
What did he run for?
For president.
Yeah, because the difference might have made a difference.
He actually, yeah, that's right. He actually, in this situation, he was one of those protest votes. If people had seen that, especially with the attitude of this last election, imagine if he'd shown up with 5 or 6% of the vote off the wall. I mean, just the idea is, well, where'd Pat Paulson? Yeah, everybody remembers him from the '60s, for the most part. But if you're younger, you wouldn't know who we're talking about. Well, where'd Pat Paulson come from? Well, let me explain this.
The old bumper sticker, Pat Paulson.
Pat Paulson
for Andrew Jackson all over again.
They had a thing with ZZ Top for president. Saturday Night Live.
A friend of mine that owns a gun shop, he told me when he was at the gun show,
right?
when he was up at the gun show in Mount Clemens, he said an ATF agent came in, he was looking at all this stuff, and he kind of loosened up a little bit, and he started telling him about how there wasn't going to be any more gun shows after the first of the year.
At least not organized ones.
Well, not organized ones.
Well, I mean, that's not the crime bill, is it?
Unbelievable. Yeah, oh
Does the
yeah.
crime bill cover something on the gun shows?
The crime bill also got the shotguns, which everybody missed.
Right.
That's the one. Well, it doesn't make any difference
those are
if it says
skeet guns,
readily
though, Mark.
adaptable.
Mark,
That catchphrase for all of these
Yeah,
were.
they got him.
ATF is trying to go city by city to get the cities to fall in and put their own ordinance in for no gun dealers.
Yeah.
They were in Dearborn Heights yesterday. Our city told them basically to take a flyer.
Yep, Dearborn Heights does not cooperate with ATF, period, zero, none, nada.
Warren
And they're
does
known
not
for
like
a while.
them.
There's a pro-gun guy there in Dearborn Heights, Dave Brunel.
Give him your support.
City council.
Also, what you need
He
to
ran
do-
for state rep, lost it.
recommendation here again. Like what we can do. If you got a copy of American Peril or Iron Mountain or any of these other tapes, make a copy of each one of them, and walk right in and hand them to these people in the council. I'm serious, because what's interesting, here's a man out west we met in San Diego. He was uncategorically, he was an atheist. He didn't believe a single word of anything we'd be talking about right now. And he said, at 75, he said he left the aerospace engineering field, retired with 40-some years, experience. So he got out and he started to look around. It's like he had fallen back off the planet. He'd been so isolated in what he was doing when he came back out of his job, which he'd immersed himself in. It's all that he worried about, and it was like paper. When he dropped the paper and came out, he said he could not believe what it was that he'd walked into. From that point on, this guy has turned his whole house into a video operation with 3/4-inch master decks. He records everything that's done by the city council, by the state, and all he does, in fact, he's a thorn in their butt. He's at every city council meeting. Whenever they say, well, I didn't see that, he walks right up and gives them a copy of whatever it is they claim they didn't see.
Is it kind of like Bush when you bring out the electronic scanner for the mail?
Yeah. And so what the beauty of this is that he realized full well what was going on, and he's become a mega zealot. I guess the best way to describe it. He understands the threat. Any one man like that you create, that you walk away from, and he does this on his own, creates another situation they cannot control. And they have no idea where he goes with the information. They have no idea who he gave it to. They have no idea what he's going to do next. And that is still the best weapon we have right now. That randomness creates a situation that they cannot control. And that's what's helped us to win so far, and we will win because of that. It's the independence of the whole Patriot Movement. Every news media person that's talked to me said, well, what organization are you with? Oh, I'm with the organization and organizations. Why? That's exactly my attitude. We're not a single organization.
What organization?
The organization to end organizations.
So what's the thing about the shotguns, the adaptability?
Okay, getting into the shotguns, it does not have to be made up that way. All it has to do is be readily available to be converted. In other words, any of your shotguns can accept an extended tube.
That's right.
Yeah.
Any of your shotguns can take a pistol grip, so in theory, all of your shotguns are assault shotguns.
We didn't notice
With the
it.
exception of a handful, and it slipped right through and under the table, and everybody's like, oh no. Because all your Mossbergs, your 1300s, your 1200s, your model, most of your model 870s,
your single shot,
all your skeet guns.
single shot.
Well, single shot would still be good for the moment, but that'll be sniper type shotgun.
Well, you can take
semi-automatics cannot take a pistol grip.
Well, it will be, because what you can do is readily adapt the scope to the shotgun. You can use Sabo slugs. Now you've got a 200-yard single shot, accurate weapon that can take and put a hole in somebody the size of two of my fists. Well, that's a sniper type shotgun, so there you go.
We were too busy buying 50 cals to notice the shotgun thing.
That's right.
And that's what scared them. We wanted the big artillery, the hell with the shotguns.
You can still get the
Get a wrist
8-shot
rocket
Mossbergs
slingshot.
though for a good price.
They're all cleared off the shelves. And we said, why? It's been like for a couple months now, she said. I don't know. They just
Toys R Us is
aren't
banning
selling them or any of that kind
Toys
of
R Us
stuff.
is banning the toy
The
guns.
toy guns, yeah, that was expected.
That's just a damn slingshot.
We knew that was coming.
Well, wrist rockets, okay, if you're looking for wrist rockets, you know what we did? We went to pick up extras and put them on the shop. I bought extras. I just bought a bunch of them. Go to the outlying old hardwares and go to all like these boat shops and like utility hardware stores like on the edge of lakes. They always have 3 or 4 of them sitting on the shelf. That's how I bought out everything the guy had, and then he went to try and get more, and he can't get them now.
Where do you get surgical tubing?
Still, that's the hospital supplier. This guy right here.
I can get that for the lab.
Ernie's are us.
Ernie's are us, yeah.
I did this when I was in
I
college.
can get tie gun and
Get
latex
about
tubing.
2 feet of surgical tube. Get either steel funnel or plastic, it doesn't matter. Bore a hole on each side of it. Tie the surgical tubing in.
Exactly.
You got a human slingshot. But I personally launch water balloons. You can do it with Molotov cocktails and a light bulb or any damn thing. It will go 100
it's
yards or
unbelievable.
further. Yeah. And it will hit. And I think that's one of the things for guerrilla warfare or diversion. You aim with a couple things till you get it down.
Real quiet.
They are very accurate.
You get really good at it after within a very short period of
You
time.
can get crossbows, they're still readily available.
Well,
Talk about crossbows,
there we
guys.
go. Here's another idea, arbalisks.
Is anybody buying them?
If all else fails, crossbows may not be accessible to purchase, but remember, every vehicle that's a wreck on the road will offer you anywhere from 5 to 6 arbalisks per side with every set of leaf spring that you acquire, because you usually have 4 to 5 to 6 leaf springs. An arbalisk using a steel cable and a boat crank for the winch, you're talking about being able to launch a 6-foot solid steel rod 300 and 400 yards, which means whatever you can. I mean, again, it's like plunk. It'll go through a car like a shish kebab out the other end. And again, it's so simple it's ridiculous. You can take the axle off another piece of wreckage or debris. You can use fence posts off the highway. Remember the fence post that had the marker on the back of the sign? Save the sign, use the sheet metal for something else. Take the pole, weld on a couple of fin stabilizers, stick it on the arbalisk, use the boat crank to crank it back. Everybody get the heck out of the way, because when you cut it loose, you never know which way that might go.
Thank you, sir. May I have another?
And again, if all else fails, just simple steel rod. It's same with using to make smaller shoulder-fired arbalisk or crossbows. You're talking traditional medieval crossbows were up to 600-pound draw prods. In other words, when they cut loose, they actually had some recoil.
Yeah.
That's why you see these units that were actually pedestal mounted. They look like they were built on
Yes,
what looks
like
like
a
a
Gatling
massive
gun.
pedal. Yes, they
Like a
were designed for
machine gun.
fortifications, and they actually had the multi
Use a roll bar
cranks.
cage on the back of a pickup truck. For that.
That's right. Yeah.
Perfect.
So the road warrior wasn't that far off. They just didn't show you all the toys. And again, it's a matter of creativity. Remember, rough-hewn oak, rough wood. Another thing, Colster mortars. Most people grossly underestimate the old Colster mortar, or beer can mortar as we call it. In many cases, Civil War mortar crews today can zero on a target faster with an old Colster mortar than a modern mortar crew can with
An 81 millimeter.
modern optics. That's right. In most cases, you'll see that an experienced Civil War mortar crew, if they usually compete, will get more, will achieve more first-round hits because they know they aren't going to get a second shot if they're not careful than a regular mortar crew with 81 millimeter. And again, it's all throwaway. The idea is fixed defenses or limited defenses with technology that when the time comes, you will not cry about leaving behind. You'll make more. And if it's done in depth and it's spread all over the planet, literally as far as the eye can see, wherever you can, whenever you can, there's no way that any single device or technology can deal with everything that you've got out there.
Do you know how to make bouncing betties?
Yeah. Why?
Oh, I'm just curious.
Well, there's a variety of different options there, but still you're better off. Okay, there's another problem. The problem with the mine is that it's very indiscriminate. It's just as dangerous for you as it is for the other side. Well, of course, that's nice on some occasions. Preferably, though, with the Patriot elements, we would want to use command detonated devices. It means you have to commit somebody, and you can also rig them for booby traps, etc. Still, the most common, cheapest, fastest way is whatever you have in the way of an explosive charge, take a standard cake pan, medium size. Lay your charge down, lay your shrapnel down, take your sheet foil, cut a piece to mate with it, lock the stuff in place with whatever adhesive you've got. Be creative, it's whatever you got to throw away. And needless, you have an activating charge. It can be a squib, it can be an improvised blasting cap from cartridges. Whatever you've got, run your 2 leads out the front, walk it back a couple 100 feet and get the heck out of the way when you touch it off. But that's poor man's Claymore. We can make them all day.
Or coffee cans.
At work, at work, what I do, that's another thing, coffee cans, and everybody should be doing this now. Yeah, we got to get going here in a minute. I have a bucket on the bench in every shop. It says frag bucket. Well, what do you suppose that's for?
Scrap metal.
Every bit of scrap metal comes off anything. When they get hit with this stuff, they're going to wonder where they got all the sex hour parts, bike chains, door locks, door viewers, bits and pieces of kitchen machinery, bits of rocks, old rusty bolts, old rusty nails. I don't use the good ones. We're going to need those to build things with. But all the junk should go into buckets and be saved. If you got a workbench at home, nothing goes into the garbage. Every piece of broken glass goes in there. Because the one thing is, one metal they can find.
Glass.
Okay?
Glass.
But glass, what you got to do is take a probe and follow the wound channel down to where the glass is. Because you can't pick the glass up on an x-ray. And I'm going to ruin their whole day with that, because eventually they can't pick enough out fast enough.
It's hard to see it too. It's cool.
That's right. That way you can save like your round lead shot for the things it's needed for, shotguns like we were talking about. But you can use anything, steel nails, finish nails.
Engine block parts.
Yeah, engine block parts. We don't throw anything away.
Broken piston rings.
Broken piston
Talk
rings,
about
that's right. Any piece of hardened steel, the smaller the piece, the more desirable, but if it's larger, we can make it smaller. And that's what we do on a regular basis. Any pieces of linked old rusty chain, no matter what condition it is, save.
Talk about the single shot throwaway cannon for like turns in the road when you expect a convoy. We'll talk about, explain it to them. It's just a big long PCV tube or pipe you bury a few inches under the soil. You fill the first 9 feet of it with all this scrap iron, and the other 2 feet you fill with bags and bags of black powder or an explosive, like when you buy powder, and then you touch it off with a good fuse you can buy anywhere. That's 3 or 4 minutes, and here comes a convoy of a dozen deuce and a halves. All that metal will go 300 or 400 yards and take out anything 50 yards wide and 300 yards long in that whole area. You'll take out anything.
Like a B-52.
What color are the Patriots painting their vehicles?
Well, whatever, we got paint for it, but actually remember, in some cases we're still going with the woodland, and we're going to end up with a lot of those. We are going to designate some what are called ambush patterns that are going to be, that are patterns we're going to change over for identification purposes. Right. In the initial phase, just any camouflage that makes common sense.
Well, if I get a deuce and a half, I'm just saying, if I don't want to paint it.
Not UN white.
Obviously,
Right,
UN white's a bad choice.
What about flat black is not good?
Flat black, as long as, I think what'll happen is like what we saw in World War II.
Big flag
Yeah, that's the way to do it. Russia, like what they did on the Russian front. I mean, the Germans picked up as much Russian equipment as they did American. All they did was they put a national flag on the hood. That way the Stukas didn't come in and blow the snot out of them when they were advancing, thinking it was the Russians retreating. Because it's hard to tell when you got a Russian tank in front and 2 German tanks behind what they're really doing. We're going to end up with the same situation. That's why I highly recommend everybody have American flags.
To put on their trucks when they're not looking. On the top of their deuce and a halves, they'll be transporting all this troops, and an A-10 Warthog will see a column of deuce and a halves with the UN on the side, but big Patriot stars and stripes on the tops, and they won't know it. Nobody looks at the top canvas of the deuce and a half, and an A-10 Warthog will lay waste to the whole column. Friendly fire.
Yeah, by the way, that if anybody's read Plaster's book, The Ultimate Sniper, the ultimate tactical move is to place yourself between 2 enemy contingents.
2 fighting units.
And instigate a firefight between those 2 units.
It'll take 10 minutes for them to figure out who's shooting who, and by that time it's too late anyway. That's right. It was my buddy Fred. You killed my buddy Fred. You son of a buggers.
And what you look for is you look for one unit that has been in place for a while with another unit moving that moves in next to them. Okay? Perhaps on a flank a half a mile or a mile away. And you slip in between them and you start firing at both units and then extract yourself after you've lit the fuse.
Choosing your avenue of escape before you start this.
Gullies, streams, sewers.
It's so embarrassing when you're in the wrong place at the right time.
You think cigarettes are a good fuse time delay system?
Well, actually, cigarettes are just a good barter item in general. As we have many smokers amongst us that I've seen and experienced, I know for a fact that I can get them to do almost anything for a pack of cigarettes.
I understand. Yeah, I know what you mean. 5 inches long, it took like 7 to 8 seconds for that to reach point A to point B.
Right.
But I'm thinking, once you hit that fuse, fine, then you know you're within a few seconds. But a cigarette is usually between 7 to 10 minutes. You put the fuse in the end of it, then after about 5 minutes you can say, okay, well, it gives you 5 minutes to get the hell out of the area.
Regular fuse is better and it's cheap.
You know, I have a friend in the Marines, he's got a bunch of water stuff. So it's
You can get the waterproof fuse at the gun show for $5
No,
a
but
reel.
he's talking actual marine fuse.
Well, that's even better.
In other words, water. We're talking. We're burns under all conditions.
Going up this weekend, it's his last thing. He's got to turn all his shit in. I said, get all the. Don't turn nothing. Get all.
He ain't got to do nothing. Just say he lost it or it was stolen. He can file a stolen gear report.
Then they'll charge him for it because he's getting out in a week.
Well, that's fine. It's more than what they charge. They charge him government prices. Tell him we'll pay for it. We'll buy it.
Wish I could have brought him in tonight.
We'll buy it. Tell them file a stolen gear report. We can arrange for the stolen gear too, and the payment.
Where's he at?
It's beginning to sound like 1774 when they told every patriot to go out and find their own musket. And somebody asked, well, where do we find those? Well, there are a lot of British soldiers walking around here.
When did these new rubber bitches come out that are self-inflating? He said he's got these new rubber bitches. Because I brought out mine the other day and blew it up just to make sure that it still worked. And
okay. I know what you're talking.
The mattress to sleep
ones?
on.
Yeah. Well, they've got them. I mean, the problem there, how many canisters? I mean, the problem is how many cartridges can you carry? When you don't get them, you're going to go right back to anyway.
Do you know how easy it is to get one little pinprick hole in your rubber mattress?
Oh, yeah.
That's why you go to the foam pads. Those foam pads you see at camping stores for $10.
Well, there aren't no.
Lot
Okay, now a certain number of people, if you can, I will say this. Remember, we're in a temperate environment, and we're also in a water environment here that's extensive. Air mattresses are fantastic, even if it's only 1 out of 4 people that carry them for riverine operations.
Right.
Remember, I'd rather have my gear drying up above
That's right.
than laying down
So you
below,
go
inflate
underneath the
2,
swim
and
and
then
just cart it
take.
along.
That's right, take
There's
2.
hard to spot because it's only like 6 foot long and it's all.
Well,
olive-drab
if
color
you've
in.
got a unit though, remember this: take 2 and lay them flat. Take the other 2 and cross them perpendicular.
Right.
Once those are locked together, and you can use duct tape if all else
That's
fails
true.
to do it. What you've got is a raft that will easily deal with any weight you throw on it, just about. It will not capsize. You're talking about short distances, but still distances that have to be accounted for.
Right.
I know. We gotta go. Okay.
Hey, Mark, just before you leave, though, you know, I have people ask me all the time about Linda Thompson, where she's coming from, what she's doing. Do you have any thoughts or insights on this?
It's a female perspective.
We are not going to make any comments about Linda Thompson in particular, but remember that there's the biggest problem that the Patriot Movement has to fight is ego. Infighting is something that is in a situation now where, as I've said before, if we have time to waste sideswiping and backbiting, then obviously we're not doing our job, because there's enough to keep us busy without going to any other projects or side activities like that. In fact, if we're doing our job properly, we do not have enough time for anything. We're on the run constantly. Well, we have been for months, as everybody knows. But there are actions, and as we've said before, people will be known by their actions. I question some of these things. We disagreed on them. There are other Patriot leaders that are in a similar situation. There are certain quirks that they seem to have. The enemy is rolling like a juggernaut down the road. This is it.
You can't afford that.
I mean, there's no time we have to waste, and when people are burning resources in something like disagreements, that is going to destroy the Patriot Movement in the long run if we're not careful. I personally, what it'll do, I shouldn't say it that way. It will cost us lives we cannot afford.
It will impede us.
That's right. I do not, and I challenge anybody who doesn't understand this. I measure everything that we are planning for the future in lives and time spent. We don't have a single man or woman or child that is expendable in the eyes of the Patriot Movement. Ever. Now, we may have some people we disagree with. We have some people that are totally obnoxious we can't stand sometimes, and I know everybody's got that attitude about one person or another. But concentrate on the goal. Don't let anybody divert us from the goal, which is the destruction of the New World Order forces, the liberty and sovereignty of the nation, and the eventual prosperity of the nation. The only way that can happen is if we stand together and not stand apart. We got to stop that from happening. We've got to put a stop to it as quickly as we can. It is, in fact, eventually it will become more obvious if these actions continue that we may actually have a situation that is very questionable with different parties. They will be known by their action. I will also say this, though. If this continues on the part of different people, if they continue to function this way, they will be like rocks in a river. They will be passed by when this wave comes and be left behind, right where they sit. If they do not perceive and understand the momentum of this situation now, on this occasion with what's happening, the Patriot Movement is like right now an ocean swell. I guess that's the only way to describe it. We've been around the country enough to watch this. If we were to pass away right now, it would take longer, but it is in motion.
Mark,
For all of us, I'm just saying, I'm not saying a particular single person, by the way. I'm just saying, in general, this is in motion, and we're now seeing it hit the mainstream because people are now feeling the hurt. They're feeling the crunch. That's made a big difference. In fact, there's people I know that are even here tonight that have been doing this for a long, long time, many years, that could see it coming, and it's like now you can say, yes, finally, people are thinking.
No more federal taxes.
Well, eventually that'll be the goal, but at first you can actually see that people are waking up, and that was our purpose behind everything that we've done. Now, I will not, under any circumstances, waste people if I feel that there is a threatening situation, and we have a specific party or parties that are going to try and do catastrophic damage to the Patriot Movement in general, because that's how I look at it, as the group as a whole, not any single element. And we're going to have to get along. I think that's another thing that people are going to have to start admitting. we're going to have to get along just as the Founding Fathers did. Those 13 colonies fought tooth and nail amongst each other. They went into fist fights in conference over actions and activities. And before we got a Constitution and Bill of Rights, it took a lot of praying, it took a lot of fasting, it took a lot of fist fights, it took a lot of bickering back and forth that lasted days and days and days. We aren't any different from where we were 200 plus years ago.
If you guys are up to phone calls tonight, the guy in WJR called the militia a crazy idea, and he said there's no reason for any of you to have more than 5 rounds in your clip.
Well, did you tell him what was for him?
Good.
Ask him to expand on his Marxist views.
Tell him when the New World Order.
No, the guy says I'm all for guns. I'm pro-gun, and there's nobody that supports the Second Amendment more than me. But there's no reason for you to have more than 5 rounds.
That he's
Say
not.
we call you controlled opposition. That's what
That's
you're
right.
called. Controlled opposition.
Okay, listen up.
What if he has 6 helicopters over his house?
He'll take out 5 out of 6, obviously. He's a good shot. Okay, first of all, we've got to be meeting again here. It won't be this next week because remember, we're going to be out and about. 2 weeks out.
Out on the boat.
We're going to be out on the boat. Again, we're really fortunate. The last several excursions, as far as the Patriots we've met, have been tremendous. And we've had very good response from the people that are out there. While we're gone, you're going to have to, again, as is always the case, you guys are the first line of defense. If something like this happens, like this media thing that we were looking at tonight, you guys are going to have to start organizing at this end to get it done on your own, because I'm trying to deal, and this is my view on this, I'm trying to muster all the support we can to keep as many of us alive as we can. That's my objective, and our safety is in numbers, just as in 1775 our safety was in numbers.
Like in Brighton.
That's right.
Scares the shit out of
That's
them.
right. It doesn't even, and that's not even full strength. I'll tell you what happened in Brighton is that there were units that were coming to Brighton, and they weren't planning on protesting.
No, I told them for every 10 of us you see, I told Bill Proctor, there's 100 more that you don't see that's ready to repel any shenanigans on ATF's part, like cattle cars full of 180-man assault company. Don't think this is all the people that are here, because that's what you see. It's the ones you don't see, Mr. Proctor, that you best worry about.
That's right. We're in a situation now where, in fact, this is a good idea. If tonight we can do this, here's a project. Call, like I asked, every one of you tonight know 2 people that weren't here. Go, if you have to, go to a payphone. If you don't feel, like I said, this is still the best way to do it. When you make a call tonight, go to a payphone for a few minutes. It costs you a few pennies more, but if you're in the Detroit area, it's not going to, in most cases, it's 25 cents.
It's local.
So it's actually cheaper probably than calling from your home phone. Call, yeah, and if they do have an 800 number, use the one they've got, but if you can, we'll do it tonight. What time does the program start?
WJR starts at midnight.
Excellent. Here's a midnight project. Take over the program.
And I'd love to hear it too.
Take over the
that
program.
guy really pissed me off.
What's his name?
Which one is it?
It's the Larry. What's his
Larry
name?
Patton.
Larry Patton. Yeah.
Take over.
You don't need any more than 5 rounds in your clip.
Yeah.
Well, then you keep 5 rounds in your clip. I like 50,000 in the can. And
There's the project for tonight for every person that's here. All you got to do, if you do nothing, if you do nothing more than make one call, make one call. But I'll tell you what happened the last time we did this a few years back, which was a lot of fun. We started with only 20 people. You know that they got hundreds of calls and it lasted for 8 hours? And we made 3 calls apiece probably ourselves over that 8-hour period. But for every call that we made, there were 10 other people that called in on their own.
Yeah, there are people coming out of the blue calling and say, I like this idea of the militia.
That's what bothers them the most. Okay, last but not least, and we make sure we do it this time, God bless the Republic, death to the New World Order, we shall prevail. Thank you. God bless.
It's going to be on a Thursday.
Thursday, 2 weeks out. Just the last time on a Thursday, hopefully, because we'll have a different schedule.
Mark,
Yes.
Saturday at Fitzgerald High School. Is one of us.
When, this Thursday?
Hey, this Saturday.
This Saturday?
Everybody hear that?
Can I have one put on my right?
I've got as many of these banners as you guys need in my truck.
Okay, anybody who wants the banners here for code.
Yeah.
Okay, we got code.
We gotta support them, guys. It's one of us.
Fella's usually here that does it.
That's my last support. Ernie, if you can hold, you should have some after Saturday.
Ernie's got it. I put on my 274 system.
That's right. 286s, 286s.